And now our host, Stephen Leigh Morris.
Welcome to Animal Farm, City Garage's weekly discussion of theater, politics, and pets. If you have a scintillating video of your favorite pet, please do share it with us. Send it to animalfarm@citygarage.org. Animal Farm is one word, City Garage is one word, and we'll share it at the end of the show. This week, Animal Farm goes to London, where we're joined by playwright Sue Blundell and actor Lloyd Morris and clarinetist Elliot Devino. Elliot is also the editor of a project of a stage play that was converted to Zoom technology. It's Blundell's play based on the life of Ludwig van Beethoven, and they'll be here to talk about how they put that all together, how they distributed it, and how they interacted with British Equity in order to get that done. You may find or may not find the surname of the actor I just announced, Lloyd Morris. You may find it a coincidence that he shares my surname. It's actually no coincidence at all. We're first cousins. Our respective fathers were brothers, and we both were born in London. We both grew up there, and my family emigrated when I was a child to California. And unbeknownst to both of us, when at the time I was developing a life as a writer, as a theater writer in Southern California, he was developing a life as an actor on the London stage. Our paths converged fairly recently, and here we are. Okay, Sue, Lloyd, and Elliot, welcome to Animal Farm.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
So we, as I mentioned, we are in London, or maybe London is here. I don't know what is the correct technicality. Anyway, we are meeting. There's a play called Silence and Joy, written by Sue Blundell, and it was originally written for the stage. Sue is a classics scholar. She's written books.
I've written books about women in ancient Greece, mostly.
Mostly focused on women.
I've done a play about Rodin and a play about Britten.
Those were your plays. Okay, Tell Me the Truth About Love. That was about Benjamin Britten, and Feet of Clay.
That was about Benjamin Britten, yeah.
Feet of Clay was about Rodin, and now you've turned to about Beethoven.
Yes.
These were performed, correct, in London? These plays, or
the Britten play and the Rodin play. The Rodin play was performed at the British Museum to coincide. They had a big Rodin exhibition a couple of years ago now. The Britten play was written first of all for a local music festival that's local to where I live in Fitzrovia in London,
okay.
And then we performed it again in another London theatre.
Great.
Britten lived for a very short time in the area where I live, which was the excuse for writing about him. Very short time.
Yeah. And then you decided to turn to Beethoven, and your vision for the production of this play was, where did you imagine it being presented when you were writing it before COVID struck? Or did you?
We had, Elliot was very much a part of this. We had, in fact, you did quite a few of the bookings. We had 6 theatres booked, but just for one night stands, as it were, but there were 6 theatres in different parts of London. And we began, and Elliot actually, who amongst many other things teaches in schools, teaches music in schools, had a really lovely education program linked to the performances, and we were going to go into schools with Lloyd as being Beethoven. Anyway, we realized very quickly, I think probably in April, we were meeting on Zoom at that stage, and we already knew October probably wasn't going to happen in live theatre for us. And then somebody suggested that we try to record the first act, which in itself was quite ambitious. It's a 3-act play, but we knew we couldn't cope with all 3 acts.
But you have really a sampling for future stage productions, then, is what you have.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you really thought of it more as promotional than as a completed work? Is that fair?
I think more than anything else, we liked that one. We like all of it really, but that one was a thing in itself, in that it was the story of Beethoven's meeting with the black violinist George Bridgetower,
Yes.
and the composition of what became the Kreutzer Sonata and the first performance, and that had an arc all of its own, and we knew that was probably would stand alone basically.
Yes.
And we just wanted to get it done. I mean, the actors were already on board. We'd had a workshop last year, and we just wanted there to be some product for all the effort we put in.
Good morning, my man. Is Herr Beethoven at home?
Is he expecting you, sir?
He asked me to visit him.
I'll see if he's available. Ferdinand Ries, Herr Beethoven's pupil.
Delighted to meet you, Ries. You're a lucky man.
And Lloyd, how did you become acquainted with this project?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be engaged to play Rodin for Sue's previous play,
Okay.
which
That almost in and of itself answers the question, yeah.
it does.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And they said to me, well, if you can play a sculptor, come and play a famous genius of a musician, which, yeah, why not? As a point of interest, I was also in rehearsals to play Gustav Mahler in another play, which was due to go on this year in London in May, and obviously had to be shelved as well. So I seem to be playing artistic people at the moment, which is quite interesting. But yeah, that's how I got involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 days I'd been in Vienna. I got a letter from my father telling me my mother was failing. When I reached Bonn, she was still alive, but in terrible pain, coughing up blood. She died 2 weeks later. She was such a good, kind mother to me, and my best friend as well. On the afternoon of the day she died, my father went to the cupboard, filled a bag, and left the house. We found out later that he'd sold all of my mother's clothes.
And Elliot, your connection, obviously, you said Sue mentioned you were in touch very early on.
I've known Sue, it must be a few years now. I actually met her briefly on her Eric Coates play, which we did at is it the Old Ship in
Yes.
Fitzrovia?
Yes.
So I was on a mentorship scheme when I was studying at Trinity London, and the lady who I was following around, and she was mentoring me, she took me along to play for this show in this pub upstairs, and that's when I first met Sue. And then later on, I came and played for the Benjamin Britten show, and then we did the Rodin as well. So we kind of developed a relationship over that time. And it was at the end of the the Benjamin Britten show, I spoke to Sue at the bar and said I just loved that play because it was fantastic. It was such a good play. And saying how it's such a shame we can't get more kind of exposure, more kind of performances of it. And then I mentioned about my ensemble and how we really wanted to do more of these kind of collaborations of music mixed in with play, basically. And Sue said, well, get in touch if you ever have an idea. And we kind of parted ways, and I don't know how much longer, it must have been a year later or maybe. I realised that this year was the 250th anniversary for Beethoven, and we got back in touch and said, I don't suppose you fancy writing about Beethoven? And yeah, it all began from there, really. So.
And your actually specific technical involvement has been as an editor, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that and how you put this together from a play on the page to something that appears now on YouTube. Or a promotional part of.
It was a lot of experiment, really, where none of us really knew how it was going to turn out. We were taking a few risks and trying to do what we could, and to create some kind of way of bringing the show online as a video, because obviously, well, I've been doing lots of collaborations with my music friends because I'm a clarinetist primarily. So we've been doing these virtual or remote recordings with all the musicians and bringing them together to create these various performances. And in my mind, it was just a lot bigger step up from what we've been doing in the same sense. So that's how we started to build up the idea. And I know all three actors met with the director, Kat and Sue. God knows how many meetings you must have had. I came to quite a few of them, but you had a lot more without me, to rehearse the play. And then we started shooting videos during the Zoom session. So they had individual cameras using the phones. And then the Zoom allowed them to hear each other and kind of respond as if it was like a real performance.
Yes.
And then those videos were sent over to me. And then I had the job of going through every single, I mean, there were like 45 scenes of individual videos, which we pieced together to make it look like they were in the same room, basically. And with quite a bit of success, it came together really well, I think.
Man, you're crazy!
I'm crazy? You're lucky to still be alive. I mean, expecting me to write a whole sonata in 5 weeks and then nagging me if I didn't get on with it. You're the maddest violinist I've ever come across, and that's saying something. So it was your father who organised all this public fiddling for you? Your promoter?
Promotion, yeah. He loved that. Major gabber, my old man. Bastard, too. Just like your dad. The drunken German tenor.
Live music integrated into this. Or not,
yes.
I mean recorded music.
Yeah, so I think we'd initially, I mean, in my mind, because I was the musical director for it, I intended there to be the Beethoven septet, that selection of musicians for that ensemble. But obviously, because of the situation, it was much simpler to reduce it down. And as we talked through and worked through the play with the music, we realised that all we really needed was the violin and piano for the purposes of this recording. And so I spoke to two of my good friends, Ronald Long, who's a violinist, and Gavin Roberts, who's a pianist. And they met up literally days before London locked down and went into tier 2. No, it was the actual lockdown, wasn't it? And they got together in a church and recorded all the music, which I'd arranged down and reduced for the two musicians. And so that became the backdrop for the music and various various performances throughout the play, which are shown.
There's a lot of theater companies in Los Angeles who are also pioneering and struggling to find ways to get their work out to audiences over Zoom and other platforms. And obviously this is a pioneer effort too, by your own admission. Now that you've actually gotten a sampling out there, is there anything you've learned from that you would do differently now? And that's really an open question for everybody.
I don't know. I mean, I think in hindsight, it's all come together really well. And I think if we were to do it any other acts or future things this way, we would tiny little subtle changes like various angles and kind of just adjusting the frame of the person where they are, so there's more flexibility and consistency and things like that, basically, just like tying up things a bit more carefully. But I think the overall picture of what we managed to pull together has come together really well. So yeah, we're really happy.
I think it's, I've said this before in another interview, I think it's fair to say that the challenge from an actor's point of view is moving from a piece that's been written for the stage to being filmed, because it's not actually written for, as filmically, should we say. Yes. And that is, from my point of view, that was one of the hardest things to actually overcome, and getting that balance right and getting that, finding that pathway through. But I think we've achieved, that pretty well, actually. That's for the audience to decide. But would you say that, Sue? That's quite a hard balancing act, isn't it, really?
And
yeah, I'm not sure that, as Elliot said, I don't think there's anything major that I would want to change. The thing that you really miss, and I don't know that there's anything that you can do about it, when you have a live performance, what's been really joyful for me has been the interaction that you get between the actors and the musicians. The musicians kind of stepping out of their normal role of sitting there with their instruments in their hands and just focusing on the music, and they've been drawn into the action. And that's been impossible and that would have happened if we'd done it live. I know it would, it always does. But it obviously, because the musicians never even met the actors in the flesh, that it just wasn't a possibility. And if we could somehow bring in that element of interaction between actors and musicians, so that they are in themselves an ensemble all together, that would be great. But I don't know how you do that. It's possibly out of the question.
Yeah, because we had musicians taking up different roles, like sometimes becoming acting roles and interacting with the actors on stage in various different ways. And yeah, it's been interesting and quite, it takes you out of your comfort zone.
And final question, Lloyd, did you have any interaction at all with British Equity? Were they supportive of these kinds of endeavors, or because it's been quite...
I don't know whether there are pay-per-view performances on Zoom or online at the moment. It seems to me that everyone is producing stuff that people can just watch, but you may know differently.
What I'm hearing is the key to the kingdom is the end of this pandemic and getting it onto a stage, getting it on.
I guess. Now,
you at least have.
Well, yeah, no, of course, it's the key to everybody's kingdom, isn't it? But I think, although there are things I certainly miss very much from live performance, and I'm sure Lloyd does as well, there've been bonuses, and I think the multi-dimensional character of the video that's been produced, thanks largely to Elliot and Kat, the director, is a bonus. And I mean, personally, I think the sets are, much better than we could ever achieve in a live performance, because the sets are, really mansions and so on. So yeah, it's had its plus side.
Good. Well, thank you again, and we will show where people can watch it. Right. I'm sure people here are very curious, and fingers crossed that in the not too distant future it sees your musicians and your actors can be breathing the same air as the audience is, and it can be performed in that way. So thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lloyd Morris, Sue Blundell, and Elliot Devino. Thank you. Next week, Animal Farm goes to Warsaw, Poland, where we'll be joined by JOANNA KLASS, Anna Smolard, and MAGDA SZPECHT. Many artists across Southern California are probably familiar with JOANNA KLASS. She's been the chief facilitator for international exchanges between artists in the United States and artists in Poland. She is currently the founder of an art space in Warsaw called Curie City, and she is the director of the Bauhaus Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to to international exchanges between Americans and Poles. With thanks to Nathan, please enjoy our closeout with Tig the Cat and the Skeleton.